Hey, everybody. Hello and welcome to the first ever live taping of the Object Podcast. Thank you. And thank you to our sponsor, Ameriprise Financial, and our Ameriprise Financial friends joining us today. That means a lot. Thank you. And if you're in the market for a new financial planner, see these guys after the show. No, don't do that. They're off duty. Providing our soundtrack for the evening is D Langley. I'm so glad she's here. She's performed with the Minnesota Orchestra, the St. Paul Chamber Orchestra, the Guthrie Theater, Theater La Teda, and many more. And she teaches the accordion. She is in the American Accordion Hall of Fame, folks. I'm so glad she's here. She will probably be the reason I stop playing the accordion, because what's the point? She's so good. So please welcome her, D Langley. I also want to thank Dexter Carlson, our programs person for the evening. We literally would not be here without her. She put this evening together and is running the show tonight. So thank you. If you like the show, be sure to tell her. If you don't like the show, I guess you could tell her that too, but good luck. A little bit about the podcast. So about 7 years ago, our director at the time said in one of those late night emails, we need a podcast. And so we set about, we took a curator and put a microphone in front of him and thought, well, this is going to be interesting. And it was not. We then took the curator to the Black Forest Tavern down the street, and bought a round of half of ice, and we thought, well, this will be interesting for sure. And it was, but not in the way that we wanted. So then I thought, well, I'm a journalist. I know how to write. I know a good story when I see one. We'll put some music behind that, and maybe that'll be enough. And here we are 6 years later. And I guess we have listeners because here you are. So thank you very much for coming out. That curator, by the way, is no longer with us. He's actually, he became the head of the Uffizi Museum in Florence. And ran for mayor of Florence. So that's interesting. A great guy. I like him a lot. We are celebrating the birthday of Édouard Manet today, and the French painter, and we're calling this episode Manet Touché, if only because I like how that sounds. He would have been 193 today. If only he'd flossed a little bit, maybe jogged. Not died of syphilis at 51, like his, like Gauguin, like Toulouse-Lautrec, like Schubert, like his father. Anyway, the guy's dead. How many of you are familiar with Édouard Manet? Okay, that's great. How many of you thought we'd be talking about water lilies and haystacks today? No? Okay, all right. That would be Monet. So let's start with a little quiz. Manet or Monet? All right. 4 questions. Manet or Monet? Let's see how well you know these guys. All right. I need 2 volunteers. Who wants to come up and play the game? All right, we've got one in the back. All right, come on up. Or, oh no, okay, all right. Anyone else? All right, you in the front, and all right, right behind, sure. Where do you want to? Oh, yeah, come on up. You can be over here. All right. All right, names. Matt and... Oh, yeah. Okay, Matt and Pat. Hello, do you want to play as well? Okay, why not? And your name? Marta. Okay, Matt, Pat, and Marta.
Marta.
Okay. We'll have, there we go. All right. One of these paintings is by Manet, one is by Monet. Which is which?
How is this trick? Okay. Well, it seems more likely to me that the one on the left is Manet.
I'm going to say the one on the right.
Okay.
Okay. Marta?
What do you think, right or left? Right or left? What do you think?
Right.
Right?
Right, okay, we got 2 for right and 1 for left. All right, that's Monet on the right, and that's Manet on the left.
Okay.
All right, so Monet, sort of the much more impressionist painter, right, in a way?
Yeah.
Although Manet was often accused of being a little sloppy with the paint. He had a critic who said, "It looked like you painted this with a mop." But I don't know. I mean, Monet, he couldn't even color within the lines. All right, so second question. Who said of the artist Berthe Morisot, "This woman's art is exceptional. Too bad she's not a man"? Manet or Monet?
I'm going to say if he died of syphilis, Manet.
Okay, good guess.
Oh my God.
Anyone else?
Who said it? Well, I think in the spirit of this, I'll say Manet.
Manet. All right, we got 2 for Manet. Marta, what do you think?
Manet or Monet? What do you think? Monet.
Monet?
Says, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try it. All right, it's Manet.
Okay.
And actually, so
Thank you.
Manet was actually her brother-in-law. And she was married.
Oh no.
And I've seen the rest of the quote. I think he's actually saying,
Yeah.
I think you're great. It's too bad in this time. You're not going to get the recognition that you deserve.
It's out of context.
Right.
Yeah.
And Morisot herself said of her own daughter, it's too bad she's not a boy, because people are in love with men at this time. But that's another story. All right, last question, folks. Another quote. We got 2 more. Who said, "Aside from painting and gardening, I am good for nothing"? Manet or Monet?
All right. Gardening.
Moving along.
Wow. I mean, that's got to be Monet because of the garden.
Yeah.
The garden.
All right, we got 2 for Monet.
I'm gonna
We're all
go
in
with
for
that.
Monet.
Yes.
And you're all right.
Yeah.
The guy who didn't even do his own gardening, right? But one way to tell Monet from Manet, Manet often paints people, Monet often paints landscapes. In this case, though, that is actually a painting by Manet. So
wow.
he did that one. That's his landscape. All right, last question, last chance.
Okay.
Who is this by Manet or Monet?
That is something. I'm not sure.
I'm going to say Manet. We're going to end with our guy.
Okay, all right, we got 1 for Manet.
Yeah, guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, Manet?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I'll say Manet.
All right, we're all in. We're all in, and you're all right.
Yeah.
All right? It is a bit of a trick question, though. This is by Manet, but that is Monet in the room. And his wife and daughter. We'll get into more of that. And I guess he did do some gardening. There he is. Folks, you're all winners. Let's get you some swag.
Yeah. Excellent job. You know our stuff.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for playing, guys.
Thank
All right, we're going to move into the storytelling part of the show here. Just give me a second to set up. All right. Let's go back to 1968. The world is falling apart, right? The Vietnam War, assassinations, bell bottoms, John and Yoko. Bruce Dayton is in Switzerland. A middle-aged man in a suit, balding with tortoiseshell glasses. The Dayton Corporation has just gone public. He had founded Target a few years earlier, and B. Dalton, the bookstore chain, he named after himself, just with an L instead of a Y, suggesting, as he put it, quality, dependability, and authenticity. He is a quality, dependable, authoritative guy. Except now he's stressed, and the first of his 3 marriages is falling apart. So he's in the Alps, getting some rest, some fresh air, staying at the Dolder Grand Hotel in Zurich, a castle-like landmark that offers golf, tennis, a skating rink, and curling. A Minnesotan would feel at home. But what Dayton really wants to do is shop, looking for art for the Minneapolis Institute of Art, which he's been doing since he joined the board of the museum in his 20s. Retail therapy. He is in the shopping business after all. And one day he goes up to Basel, about an hour from Zurich, and he goes to the Gallery Bieler, this renowned upscale art dealer. Apparently, Dayton is in a Manet mood, and he asks the gallery if they have any Manets to sell. There aren't many Manets around, right? He only lived to 51. But they do have one, this one, of an old guy with a big beard smoking a long pipe, his hand about the size of his face, looking out at the viewer like an invitation. Relax, it's going to be okay. No one can be a quality, dependable, authoritative guy all the time, nor should they. It was painted in 1866, once owned in the early 1900s by Gertrude Vanderbilt, aka Mrs. Harry Payne Whitney, founder of the Whitney Museum of American Art. It's called The Smoker. Later, Dayton takes a postcard from the hotel and writes to the director of the museum, Anthony Clark, "Dear Tony, I asked about a Manet. It's not cheap. However," Dayton writes, "it is a great Manet. The head is magnificent and has very much the feel of a Rembrandt. It would stand out in our galleries. I don't see how we can hope to do better on a Manet." He sends the postcard, maybe plays some curling, and then he waits. This is the Object Podcast, produced by the Minneapolis Institute of Art. The Object is made possible by generous support from Ameriprise Financial, a proud supporter of the Minneapolis Institute of Art and committed to the future of art and culture in the communities they serve. Ameriprise Financial, helping people feel confident about their financial future since 1894. Today, Manet Touché, a story about what it takes to break boundaries and what happens to the wreckage left behind. This is a live taping of the podcast at the Minneapolis Institute of Art with a live audience, at least I hope they're alive, and accordionist D Langley providing the soundtrack. Thank you so much for being here. And everyone at home, thank you for listening in on our little party here. I'm Tim Gearing. Well, let's go even further back to the 1840s in France. Edward Manet is a teenager in Paris, living in a big house on a big street. His dad is a big deal, a judge in a long line of lawyers, which Edward is expected to join. But right across the street is the National School of Art, with its unkempt, rebellious art students who stage these costume bacchanals and drunken saturnalias. And Manet thinks, that's where I want to go. So he and his dad compromise on the Navy. At age 15, Manet takes the entrance exam and bombs it. He gets a note back that says simply, a waste of time. His dad isn't willing to give up. He says, okay, how about you go out to sea on a merchant ship for a few months, learn the ropes, literally, learn to work instead of party, and then you can take the exam again. The boat, it turns out, is going to Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Manet says, well, if you insist. And so in December 1848, at age 16, he goes. But he's only on board for a couple of weeks when he writes this note in his journal, like the teenager he is. How boring is the life of a sailor. Nothing but sky and water, always the same thing. It's stupid. A lot of things are stupid to him. The quote, unfortunate Brazilian men who seem stupid. The colonial women who aren't as flirtatious as he hoped. No one is more prudish or stupid than a Brazilian woman, he writes. Rio will eventually name a public square after him, Praça Manet, perhaps because no one there had read his diaries. But on board, Manet starts drawing. Ports of call, caricatures of his fellow sailors, including the captain who asked for one for Christmas. He's named the master of drawing on board the ship, so that at the end of 6 months, when he's 17 and back in France, he has a whole portfolio of work and is even less interested in joining the Navy. I want to study art, he tells his father, either before or after he fails the exam again, I don't know. And this time his father says, fine. Manet asked to train at a private studio in the Bohemian quarter of Paris. And his father agrees, thinking, well, at least he won't be caught up in the drunken saturnalias at that college across the street. And while they're waiting for the lessons to start, his father hires a piano teacher, a Dutch woman named Suzanne Leenhoff. 19 years old, described by the Manet family as having the shape and size associated with her countrywomen. Otherwise, she is blonde and gentle. She teaches Manet and his younger brother. And then over the next few years, two things happen. One, Manet becomes a very good and very fast artist. The artist Eugene Delacroix, who Manet likes quite a bit, supposedly said that a great artist should be able to draw a man falling out of a fifth-story window before he hits the ground. And Manet can probably do that. And two, the piano teacher gives birth to a son. Now, there's no doubt that the father is a Manet. The only question is, which Manet? Edward or his father? Suzanne names Edward as the boy's godfather, and she names the boy Leon Edward Coella. Coella apparently being a made-up name. And then, for some reason, she passes him off as her own younger brother. In 1863, after Manet's father has died of syphilis, Manet marries Suzanne. And even when they move in together, she still insists Leon is her brother, even to Leon. In fact, no one tells Leon anything different until he's 20. Manet paints Leon over and over in some of his best-known images. Boy with a sword, boy blowing bubbles, boy peeling a pear. He says he wants to paint real life, real people, by staging them in his studio with props and costumes. It's a start. The Smoker. It's actually a fellow artist who is also Manet's neighbor. For some reason, strange old men smoking pipes becomes kind of a meme in the mid-1800s. Anyway, after finishing his studies, Manet sets up his first studio with a fellow artist, a guy named Albert. And they find this boy named Alexandre wandering the streets nearby. Manet goes to his mother and says, "How about you give him to me? He'll have nice clothes, a warm bed." And she says, "Okay." So Alexandre moves into the studio, cleans the artist's brushes, also poses for them. Now, apparently, he also sometimes steals things, bits of sweets and liquor, and Manet gently reprimands him. And one day this happens, and Manet threatens to send the boy back to his parents. And then he leaves. And Manet comes home many hours later and finds the boy, now 15 years old, in a corner of the studio, hanging from a rope. A suicide. Manet is in the midst of painting this picture of him, boy with cherries, of a happy-looking boy in a jaunty cap with an overflowing bunch of cherries. And after Alexandre's death, Manet moves out, and he finishes the painting anyway, at his new place. And nothing else comes of the death. Manet's friend, the poet Charles Baudelaire, writes a story about it called The Rope, in which he has the mother ask for the rope so she can sell pieces of it to the neighbors. And the father says, "Oh, well, perhaps it was for the best." Now, within 2 years, Manet gets into the Paris Salon, the most prestigious exhibition in Paris, with this painting, The Spanish Singer, of a different young man, dressed in the same not very Spanish costumes Manet kept in his studio, including a kind of Keith Richardsonian bandana and playing a guitar, kind of. Baudelaire looks at the painting and says, "Hold on. You want to paint real life, but you've got a left-handed guitarist playing a right-handed guitar, and incorrectly. You should fix this." And Manet says, "Nah. No one said real life has to be real." And he wins an award for the painting anyway. In 1863, Manet submits this painting to the Salon, Luncheon on the Grass. A naked woman sitting in the woods with two guys in suits, having a picnic. The woman looking right at the viewer, breaking that fourth wall, right? Like, wait, what? Aren't all your picnics like this? No? That's too bad. Well, the painting is rejected because naked people in paintings are supposed to be gods or goddesses or the like, not actual naked people. And also, what's even happening here? Do the men even know she's there? Does she not care about mosquitoes? And what's with that other woman in the background on all fours in the dirt like she's lost a contact? Manet is apparently blindsided. Never saw it coming. So he shows the work anyway in a separate show for artists rejected by the Salon, which includes many Impressionists. Manet had become famous at 29 after showing The Spanish Singer, or at least infamous. Younger artists had started coming around his studio hoping to see this guy who apparently doesn't give a shit. And now when they see the Luncheon on the Grass, they're blown away. Who does that? We didn't even know we could do that. Except for one of the other rejected artists, the main impressionist, Claude Monet, who sees Manet's painting and thinks, dude, I can do better. See, all you have to do is put everyone in clothes. Yeah, no one remembers Monet's version of Luncheon on the Grass, which he actually calls Luncheon on the Grass. Except Manet. He remembers. And so 2 years later, in 1865, Manet enters the salon and gets in. And he goes to see the show. And there, because it's arranged alphabetically, he sees Monet's paintings right next to his. Even the signature looks the same. Manet starts getting these compliments. Love the landscape. Love the seascape. But Manet is not showing a landscape or a seascape. He's showing this painting of another modern naked woman lying in a classical pose. This time, a prostitute. The critics are appalled, and now Manet is even more upset with Monet. Like, who is this poor bohemian with this silly seascape that everyone loves? Monet says, hey, look, we Impressionists don't care if these critics like us or not. Most of them don't, but we like you. Why don't you join us? We're going to have our own shows. Forget these guys. And Manet looks at Monet and his poor bohemian impressionist friends and says, no. Manet never does join the Impressionists in their shows. It's not them, it's him, apparently. There's a story about the first time Manet meets Edgar Degas, who is an impressionist but also wealthy like Manet. Manet is about 30, Degas about 2 years younger. And Manet decides to go to the Louvre Museum in Paris to be inspired by one of his favorite Spanish paintings by Velázquez. And he finds this sullen artist already sitting in front of it trying to copy it. How audacious of you, Manet tells Degas, to not make any preliminary drawing. I wouldn't try it. Degas isn't put off by this, and they become friends, or frenemies, which seems like the only kind of friends that Manet has. Manet starts holding court at this cafe on a street, and Degas comes around, and Cézanne and Pissarro, and eventually Monet. After 2 years of circling each other suspiciously, competitively, they had finally come to respect each other. When the Prussians attacked Paris in 1870, almost all the Impressionists flee to the countryside, except Manet and Degas, perhaps the two wealthiest among them. They stay and fight, and this bonds them together, except when it doesn't. There's another story about Manet and Degas, that at some point Degas thinks it'd be nice to paint a portrait of Manet and his wife, Suzanne, the piano teacher. And he does. Manet on the couch, Suzanne at the piano. But there's something about it that Manet doesn't like. Degas has this thing where he paints exactly what he sees, as cruel and cold as it might be. And perhaps he sees this dull tension between Manet and his wife, something empty between them, and Manet can't stand it. In any case, he takes a knife and cuts apart the painting, removing the piano and part of Suzanne. And then he gives it back to Degas. Manet is in his mid-40s when he suddenly starts painting flowers. His body is falling apart. His legs are painful to stand on. He starts falling in the streets. And yet he seems to see beauty everywhere, or at least he wants everyone else to see it. Still lifes of bouquets and vases, women in flowered dresses, all painted with quick, bold jots of paint, often outdoors, like Monet and Degas and the rest. As if he had liked the Impressionists all along, and only now, at the end, could he admit it. By now, the critics have come around to the Impressionists and Manet. As one critic writes, the legend that made of him a scruffy art student, a jokester who inveigled Paris, is far behind. One would have to be blind to deny it. Manet is a master. He had set modern art on a path of strangeness and darkness, and now that it's well on its way, the only rebellion left, it seems, is to run away from it, toward beauty. At the end, he's getting massages and showers for 5 or 6 hours a day, hoping to relieve the pain. And in between, he paints. Mostly young women, hoping to relieve the pain. But it does no good. In his last months, he paints a dozen pictures of flowers, probably flowers that people had brought him. I'm getting better and better, he insists to his friends. When the sun returns to Paris, I'll be fine. But his left leg is in such bad shape, rotten with gangrene, that he has to have it removed. He begins one last portrait when the young maid of a friend comes by with an Easter egg. And when the woman returns the next day, Manet is gone. Let's jump ahead to the 1960s again in Switzerland, where Bruce Dayton keeps shopping after finding the Manet. I'm going way out of my class and buying a small Roman torso, he writes, the director of Mia. Don't laugh until you see it. But mostly it's the smoker that he's moved by. I haven't found much art except for the Manet. It is beautifully painted, though quite dark except for a Delft blue handkerchief in his hand. By then, of course, Manet is still dead, but the success of the Impressionists who outlived him, and the Post-Impressionists, and the Post-Post-Impressionists, who are essentially modernists, have given him new life. Degas, after all, apparently said, Manet was better than we knew at his funeral and lived another 30 years. Monet lived more than 40, puttering around in his gardens. Eventually, to think about Monet was to think about Manet. Dayton is still thinking about Manet days later in Zurich when he gets a telegram from Minneapolis with just 7 words. Apparently sent as soon as his postcard made it to the museum. Deeply believe, smoker, perfect picture for us. Thank you very much. That is the end of our storytelling portion of the evening. Manet Touché. Thank you. All right, are you ready for a second quiz? I know I am. All right, let's do it. Mayonnaise or mayonnaise? 3 questions, multiple choice. I'm going to need a couple more volunteers. Oh, all right. Thank you. Anyone else? All right. I think your hand came up first. Thank you. All right. Who do we have here? Amanda.
Emily.
Amanda and Emily, thank you. Thanks for being here, and thanks for playing. All right. 3 questions, multiple choice. We have 3 descriptions. One of them is a statement about mayonnaise, the condiment. And the rest are, and not a critic's review of Manet's paintings. All right, so one is, which of them is a statement about Manet? That's the question. All right, so is it A, vile, disgusting, the color of a cadaver displayed in the morgue? Is it B, it has the sourness of someone prematurely aged with the disturbing perfume of an evil flower? Is it C, cries out for examination by the inspectors of public health?
We just say which one is the condiment?
Well, which one of these is describing the condiment? Or is it D, none of the above?
One is the condiment or one is the Manet?
Which one is describing a condiment and not a critical review of Manet's artwork?
I'm going to say B because of the smell.
Okay, we have B and we have and C. The answer is actually D. All of these at one time or another were what critics thought of Manet's paintings. All right, question 2, which is unrelated to Manet's The Condiment in any way. That was just a funny title for the first one. All right, so question 2, the Impressionists got their name from a title of one of Monet's paintings. And art critics saw the title and thought, that's it, you're Impressionists. But the artists had already come up with a name for their own group on their own. What was this name they gave themselves? Was it A, Painters of Light? Was it B, the Anonymous Society of Painters, Sculptors, and Engravers, etc.? Or was it C, the Impresarios of Modern Painting Society, or IMPS? What do you think? What does anyone think?
I guess C, but
C, the Impresarios of Modern Painting, IMPS.
go for B.
B, all right, the Anonymous Society of Painters, Sculptors, and Engravers, etc. Yes, it's B.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is. You gotta love that, etc., right? I kind of feel like maybe there was a performance artist with them, and they were like, nope, we're not gonna list you. You're gonna be an etc. But no, it was B. That was their actual name that they thought of, but they became known as the Impressionists, right? All right, question 3. Manet did not always take feedback well. He once got into a duel with a critic, which was actually a guy he painted a portrait of. They went into the forest, they drew swords, and no one got seriously hurt. So how did this duel end? Was it A, Manet realized he had an appointment with Napoleon III, who was the leader of France at the time, and begged off? Was it B, Monet showed up and broke up the fight? Or was it C, both of their swords got bent like something out of a Bugs Bunny cartoon, and the fight was over? What do we think?
I'm going to go for B.
Go for B. Monet showed up and was the peacemaker. Well, why not?
I'll go with C.
It was C.
Was it C?
It is C. Okay, apparently these swords were not very sharp, and they bent on impact. I guess the critic did sustain some kind of small wound, and Manet said, that's it, that's fine, that's good enough. It's all for show anyway, right? So, thank you both for playing. Folks, that is our show for tonight. Thanks again to D Langley for providing the soundtrack. Thanks again to Ameriprise Financial for making this possible. Season 7 of the Object Podcast will get underway in just a couple months. In the meantime, we'll have more bonus episodes like this one. Please subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss an episode. Leave us a review, and we will have more live shows. So keep an eye out for that. We are going to do a Q&A after this, so stick around if you'd like to. Otherwise, wander the galleries, go enjoy Meet at Mia. Food and music tonight. There's a movie starting at 7 in the Pillsbury Auditorium. The Impressionists and the Man Who Made Them. Or go up and see The Smoker. It's up there. It's in Gallery 351. So enjoy. Thank you. Again, I'm Tim Gearing. Stick around for the Q&A, and thank you very much for coming.